Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you're here. I am so grateful that I'm here. And welcome back, everyone. So, this is the weekly astrology report. We're doing it as a stream today. It's our first quarter moon in a square to the sun today. And, there's a lot of attention that gets paid to these new moons and these full moons, but it's really these quarter squares where there's really a lot of opportunity and challenge to growth here. So we're going to talk about today's first quarter square with our moon in Taurus and our Aquarius sun. We're going to talk about the astrology leading up to the full moon on the 16th. And if you have not checked out your signs astrology for this upcoming full moon, I really recommend it. You can access that very easily on YouTube through the playlist that is called Astrology Forecast, all signs. You can access your sign, so rising sign, moon sign, sun sign, and get specific details about how this full moon may be impacting you based on your sign. So welcome back, everyone, and welcome if you're new to this channel. Thank you for being here. If you find that this content is inspiring, is helpful, is guiding you along your awakening process, because the awakening process is one thing. What do you do with it? That is another thing entirely, and that is what Catalyst Energies is here to do, to facilitate this process for you. So if you are enjoying this content, you find it helpful, inspiring, it's guiding you along your own pathway, consider subscribing to this channel. Hit that like button, and of course, when you share and you comment, it all impacts the algorithm that recommends this channel and this content to a wider audience, and it actually does make a difference. And a special shout out to my subscribers on Subscribestar. You're so patient over the last week as I've dealt with the kooky roo-roo, and I'll give you some updates, of course, but I really appreciate your investment, not only in me, but in yourself and in your own journey. And for $3 a month to support this content being available like it still is in this format is really, I just appreciate it so much. And so do other people that find it, I'm sure. So you may want to consider subscribing. You can find that link in the description box below. You can hang out to the end of this video and get more information as well. So here we are, my friends. How is everyone doing? How are you feeling? We are at our first quarter moon. That means we're officially beginning the second lunar quarter of this lunar cycle. We had the new moon on the 1st of February, right? In bulk, the beginning of the Chinese New Year, Groundhog's Day, right? All of these markers for a very seasonal shift, right? It's the beginning, it's the halfway point between the December solstice and the March equinox in bulk, right? This is the beginning of February. So Groundhog's Day, of course, is this thing that we've made up to designate whether or not we're going to have an early spring or not. But really, it is a very distinct part of the cycle. So, excuse me. So we are now with these quarter moons, especially the first quarter, this is our first real challenge to that intention that was set, right? The new moon is a time to set intentions, to plant seeds of personal growth and development along the lunar cycle. And this first quarter square is really a crisis in action. What are we going to do now that we've are experiencing our first real challenge? And this is all fixed energy, right? The entire lunar cycle that started with new moon in fixed air, Aquarius, all of the points along the journey of the moon as it makes those relationships to the sun, it's all fixed energy. So it's very stabilized in its element, strong and secure, but not very yielding, is it? So these types of squares especially can be very difficult because they're very entrenched in their positions. And when they meet in a confrontation or a challenge, especially around action, with the sun in its weakest position in the zodiac, which is Aquarius, its sign that's opposite of its home, then I see that there is, I've been feeling this already, and it was reinforced so much with today's reading that I'll share with you. I don't often do an intuitive reading with the astrology report, but it really was speaking to me, and I'm glad that I did, because there's some things that are coming back into our awareness from yesterday, which is really, I really pay attention when these things come up. And also, just to give some more archetypal and symbolic reference for all of us, it does feel like that. We are looking so much for judgment, for a sense of, oh geez, uh, certification of everything that we have been doing, right? I mean, the thing about the sun in Aquarius is that the only real ego-based power and confidence and authentic expression is in the realm of the collective, which can be very disempowering and feel very weak at times. And so to look to the collective energy, or the larger civilization as a whole, and what it stands for, to find some type of authentic inner, like, personal individual expression, is very difficult. And there's a lot of fire in the reading today, as we're going to see, but we're also being asked for an incredible amount of patience. And if there's anything about moon in Taurus, feeling of patience can really be exhibited here or felt. And I would recommend and suggest, not just for out there, but for myself as well, that we find that patience within us right now, the patience enough to be able to perceive what we are, and to interpret correctly what we are perceiving. So we'll get into all of the nuts and bolts of this as we go through today's report and transmission. But I just want to check in with the chat, see how people are doing. Emily says, hey sis, looking good and brighter. Yeah, I am definitely on the mend, and every day I feel a little bit better. So a couple things about what I've been doing, just to give you an idea how I've been treating my own experience of the kooky-roo this time around. I've had a couple times, and I can't say for sure. I've never officially been tested. I clearly don't have any other type of medical intervention that's involved with this. This is just based on my own experience and other people reporting their experiences. But, yeah, every day I feel a little bit better and getting better sleep, right? My digestion is starting to calm down, although my sense of taste is out the window, right? I mean, I can taste this coffee, which I'm really grateful for. I've really missed coffee, but I'm glad that I gave myself a break from it, and essentially fasted for days. And I'm still very, very hungry, and nothing seems to satisfy. So I'm going to share my experiences, because I'm curious how people have experienced things themselves, if they have similar symptoms. I've been in conversation with some people on Telegram about the sense of smell and just the sense of taste in general, and like what's going on with that. So one of the things that's really helping me that I do now, some people use a neti pot or some version of that. I personally do facial steams. It's really easy to do. It's total DIY. You just put a pot of water on the stove, or whatever you use to heat up any water. You can use an electric kettle and pour it into a pot. However you get boiling water that's producing steam, you get it to that point. And then honestly, it's really easy. And I learned this just, hydrotherapy is an incredible technique. Any type of hydrotherapy is really one of the most profound healing techniques that you can utilize. And hydrotherapy is exactly what it sounds like. You're using water, and the temperature of water in particular, and the properties of water when it comes to temperature, and the way that water is able to hold temperature. It's one of the most, it holds more heat than any other substance on our planet, at least, in terms of what is available to us. This is why when you go to the coast or anything like that, the temperature is usually a lot cooler than if you go inland, because the water is holding more heat. Anyway, so it's really easy. You just bring that pot of water to a boil, or at least till you see steam, right? And then you just take a towel and you just put it over your head, and then you just do the steam inhalation. So I put some What I'm using right now is a essential oil blend from doTERRA that's called Breathe. This is not an endorsement, like sponsorship or anything. I've just used doTERRA products for a really long time, and and I'm sure there are other products, essential oil wise, that meet that level of purity, and in their process of creating it. So if you have other suggestions, or you found that you've another essential oil brand that you're like, yeah, this stuff is top notch, doTERRA has just been the one that I use. And I know their whole marketing thing is kind of like a pyramid scheme, but their oils are the highest vibe that I've used so far. Doesn't mean that there won't be others, or that you can't make it yourself. I mean, distillation is not exactly an easy process, especially depending on what you are distilling. But yeah, you just put that towel over your head, you put your oils in the water, and you just give yourself, anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 minutes of steam inhalation, man, and it really does the trick. And like I said, some people use neti pots. You can do that too. People have made a lot of incredible suggestions. The nebulizer, somebody had made a suggestion about like a salt pipe, all of these things. Now, it has not moved into my lungs whatsoever. And, so I don't know what that is all about, but it's definitely in the sinuses, just right here, and not in any other part of my sinuses. So I wonder too how much of this is impacting just the sense of smell in general, right? Not so much like I have a cold, so I can't smell anything, and that is directly related to taste, by the way. If you don't already know that, like if you can't smell something, you're not going to taste it. So those things are related, but that's what I do. I've been doing a couple of them every day, right? And that's the thing about herbal remedies. The thing about any type of natural remedy is that it's not a one-stop fix, as we probably all know here, right? It's a consistent it's a consistent practice that brings you to a state of balance. You're not going to get that with like one pill. Now, people have suggested ivermectin, of course, and hydroxychloroquine. I've been taking quercetin, which is the hydroxychloroquine is the prescription version, and this is what opens the channels in the cells, right, in order for the antiviral medication to make its way in, such as vitamin C in particular, and zinc. I'm not a big fan of zinc personally, and I think that it really has a lot to do with your blood type and other mineral balances. I take cell salts on a regular basis to get all of those things. So I can't digest zinc, right? When I take zinc as like a tablet, it makes me sick. And so I just stick to either my cell salts. I have been taking Emergency and putting it in the tonic water. So that's another way, because the quinine in the tonic water is the same base as the quercetin. It's the same base as the hydroxychloroquine, right? It's it's a substance, and I haven't gone so deep into the chemistry yet to really explain every nook and cranny of this, but it does open the cells in order to allow in these substances that stop viral replication in the cells. So I've been doing the steams, I've been doing the quercetin, and sweet wormwood is also antiviral. So that's something that I'm experimenting with. I'm taking a high dosage of that every day to see. And I took a lot of it yesterday. I took like 600 milligrams of the actual substance in sweet wormwood that's antiviral. And I did notice a pretty definitive difference in just how I feel, my sleep quality, things like that. So one day at a time, right? One day at a time, and trusting your body and supporting your body's immune system in order to do what we are naturally capable of doing. So I really appreciate everybody's suggestions and support. And everybody's body is different. Everybody's blood chemistry is different, and blood type is different, and body chemistry is different. So you find what works for you through a lot of times trial and error. And some research, and you will find what does work for you. So one day at a time, and I do feel better. So one of the things I've noticed too is, in terms of the sense of smell, is that I've gotten very hypersensitive to any kind of chemical preservative in food, right? And it's the same smell no matter what type of food I'm smelling. If there is a chemical preservative in in that food item, it has this very distinct smell that is just nasty to me and makes my stomach turn. So eating has been a real challenge because so many things that I took for granted in terms of preservatives on these foods, I can't even like stomach smelling anymore without this very particular smell. So there's been some, research, and we are going, some, people have been bringing up certain things about this. There's, like I said, there's been a conversation about maybe type of compounds in the foods that are targeted with the changes from the kukiruru. Who knows? But I do know that I am hungry all the time and nothing satisfies my appetite because I can't really eat anything that has any kind of chemical preservative. And I'd say that is a win. I mean, it's not ideal, but at the same time, it's like, oh, this is perfect. I have like an ingrained olfactory thing now that doesn't allow me to even tolerate chemical preservatives on food. So I would say that's a win. I'm pretty stoked about that. Like I said, it's not ideal, right? There's a lot of things that I took for granted that had, like soft corn tortillas that I opened up and smelled, and I was like, oh my God, this smells exactly like everything else that has turned me off, but it's just a tortilla. And then you look in the ingredients and you're like, oh, it's got this and this and this as preservatives. Even though it's just less than 2%, it's still there. So very interesting experience with all of this. So I'm curious what people are thinking, how they're doing. If you're feeling frustrated, I feel like there is a lot of frustration. My sense of taste, I'm going back to the chat now. Barbara says, my sense of taste and smell totally came back after a few weeks. Thank God. Taurus rising here. Hell yeah. I just started taking a short course of Ivan Mac Truck, and oh my God, after a year, it's giving me more vitality. I feel more alive again. Quinine tincture is good. Yeah, I could see that like as a tincture. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, anything that's like that, a tincture, or anything that you inhale is going to get into your bloodstream a lot quicker. And then anything that you take orally as into your stomach is going to last a lot longer, but it's also going to take a lot longer to kick in. So that's something to consider as well. Chemical turnoff sure would help with my unhealthy snacking habits. Oh my God, that's exactly it. All these things that I took for granted that I'm like, oh, my body can tolerate it. It's just like if I smell it, it's over. Like I can't even handle even the smallest amount of chemical preservative. Otherwise, it just makes my stomach turn. It's so strange and bizarre. But I'm appreciating what has been presented to me, even though it's not ideal. I do, the quinine tincture is a good idea. And I'm looking forward to my sense of taste and smell coming back. Last night I was eating things and I was just like, I can't taste any of this. And I know part of it is this is all stuffed up. So anyway, that's just my personal journey with the kukiruru, and just to let you guys know what's going on. And the more that we share with each other about what our own personal experience is, the more we have data that we can cross-reference, and that's how we figure out what's going on. And we're so still, and this is a great segue into what's going on, because we are still relying on these outside sources to tell us what is going on and what we should do, where we should put our attention, what we should care about. And it's just kind of a shit show. It seems to be a struggle, and there's a lot of quote-unquote infighting. There is a lot of just slinging back and forth. There's a lot of disclosure, right? There is a lot of stuff coming up. You see resignations. I've seen quite a few resignations, more strange publicized deaths. You saw that one of the White House science advisors, or I can't remember exactly, forgive me on that. I mean, there's so much information that comes across my awareness, but that also, somebody had resigned recently from the White House administration, or the supposed White House administration. So there is a lot still happening. And we talked about how there is a quickening and there is an expansion and things are moving faster, which is why this the full moon, geez. We've talked about that before. This is why it's really important, I think, to look at your signs astrology forecast for the full moon, because you'll get to just look at the chart. And we'll look at it today as we move through the week's astrology leading up to it, because Mars is getting shit done. Mars in Capricorn gets shit done. And so that is also part of this quickening, not just Jupiter, in Pisces. I think that's a big part of it as well. But Mars is getting shit done. Mars was in a sextile to Jupiter over the weekend. Mars was in a square to Chiron, over the weekend. And now today, Mars is going to be in a trine to Uranus. So this also is this great opportunity to really capitalize on some electric energy and put it towards something, right? Mars is exalted in Capricorn, wants to put its energy towards something goal-oriented, wants to put the individual fire towards something. And we're going to see in the reading today that also is a very strong, that can be the Mars trine Uranus aspect today, along with this first quarter moon, that is a challenge, right? Is a challenge of what do we do? Our first real challenge about how we feel in terms of the cycle that we initiated with the new moon, which is a very powerful new moon because it was the beginning of the Chinese New Year. It's the Imbolc, all of these seasonal markers, right? All of these temporal markers. It's very strong, and so it's I'm still struggling in terms of my mental capacity to stay on point and to not have brain fog, because I think that's one of the that seems to be one of the stronger things that have carried over from people's infection is the brain fog. So I'm looking forward to that clearing up very soon as well. But that the trine with Mars and Uranus is an incredible opportunity, but it also can be used against us so easily if we are taking the frustration of the frustration of this first quarter moon, I would say, with squaring the sun and just the moon in Taurus. It's gonna cross over the North Node today as well, and there's some pretty substantial astrology for this week leading up to the full moon that it could easily be used against us, right? That we're frustrated and agitated as Uranus is, and we are insecure with the changes and the shifting landscape of our material world. And Mars can either stabilize that with an outlet in some way, or it can stabilize it in a way that has us just to feel a sense of stabilization, or to feel like there's some sort of certification of everything that we have done, right? We are looking for this white dove to come out of the sky, and perhaps what we really need to do is to settle in emotionally, intuitively, into the world around us and feel into the rhythm of what is happening in order to see those signs, right? It may not be as obvious as we want it to be. And in fact, we may get really frustrated and think that we've been deceived on some level. And perhaps we have, right? This is part of this journey for all of us, is unpacking all of the layers of deception of the material matrix that we are living in. And the economy in and of itself, we know this is in its collapse. I mean, this is not exactly new, right? And this is not exactly that hard to wrap our heads around. It's about where it lands after the pyramid collapses in on itself and the distribution pattern, right? And so Maybe it's in the material world itself. Maybe it's in the rhythm of the planet. Maybe it's in our resources and the inherent value that we feel that we are going to really see, the wisps of the clouds that are in the shape of that dove that we are so desperately looking for out there or in the social scene in general. So let's actually start looking at the reading. Have you tried? I'm going to come back over to the chat. I'm sorry. I know that can be kind of so disconcerting. I just want to share with you when I'm like moving back into that space. Have you tried hot and sour soup? The one thing I could eat for the first month. That's a great suggestion, actually. So one person yesterday in my conversation said that they felt that it could be sulfuric compounds, the foods that have sulfuric compounds, which is a lot of foods, by the way, could be the source of possible turnoff. They also, in observation and certainly in conversation with other people, some people aren't able to tolerate spicy food anymore, but I like that suggestion, hot and sour soup. I mean, soups and bone broth, all of those types of things are very easy, and rice. I mean, I've just been eating rice like pretty consistently, and that's about all I can do. So I'm gonna have to get creative here about what I can eat. But hot and sour soup sounds everything about that sounds awesome. And so maybe I'm gonna have to start creating new recipes for myself because the old ones aren't really gonna work for me right now. So I appreciate your feedback. Oh my gosh, so much, right? Especially people have been down this road already. So the first thing I want to do, like I said, I don't often do an intuitive reading for the astrology report, but let's do it because I felt really called to do it, and I did, and I'm glad that I did. So I'm going to bring up the reading for today. All right, guys, let's see here. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee here. So I'm going to turn off the mic so you don't have to listen. Okay, guys. So the first thing we notice here with this reading and we'll get into each card in particular and unpack it, and really break it down. But the first thing I noticed is this is the Eon, right? We've had this kind of recently. The Eon, number 20 in the Thoth Tarot, or Judgment. And it's, sorry, something really distracted me about Thoth, and I'll share it at the end. Somebody remind me about it because it really, it's really hard to enjoy any mainstream entertainment anymore, right? Because it's like a consistent process of unpacking it and deconstructing it, worse than it's ever been for me. Like, I've always been that way, but now it's like, oh wow, even in the most like simple, naive, innocent seeming like sitcoms on prime time, you see shit just sprinkled all over about the occult, and all kinds of stuff. So remind me, I want to bring something up about that, but I will lose my focus if I do it here. So the Eon, this is about judgment. And in the original Rider-Waite tarot, right, the one that everybody's the most familiar with in terms of tarot, number 20 is judgment, right? And it's a pretty standard image of the rapture, right, or judgment day, where the dead rise and the horn of Gabriel and la la la. So, but Eon, right, it's more of a turning of into the next age, right? And the judgment part of it is the idea that there is it's part of the phoenix emerging, that the Eon is referenced, but it does relate to fire, right? And you see fire all along this horizontal axis here. So there is a lot of fire in this reading. There is a lot of personalized fire because and immature and young fire, the Prince of Wands and the Princess of Wands. And when the Eon is reversed, those aspects of liberation, redemption, the rising of the phoenix, right? There's destruction, but it comes as a precursor to the liberation and the redemption. But when it's reversed, right, there is something that is not right about it. And maybe it just hasn't shown up yet, and that's where we get our frustration. So what we see the Seven of Roses came back in the same position it was yesterday. So, I mean, emotionally and intuitively, to have our attention be staying put, right? Stillness. And here's the grouse again with expressing yourself or finding your alignment with planetary heartbeat, planetary rhythm. And then you have reflection, very similar to what's going on here with the journey. A number 19, this is breaks down to 9 plus 1 is 10, right? So 1. And the idea here is that with still waters run deep, the idea that the still waters allow an accurate reflection, a clear reflection. And this is our channel, our intuitive channel being open very strongly. And so what's interesting to me is not only did this come back up again, we have the Seven of Forces, so you have these 2 sevens on either side here, but there is something really important about stilling the waters, right? When we travel on a boat, I mean, anybody that's been on any kind of water vessel down, it could be an inner tube for all I know, right? The whole thing that goes along with that has to do with this is the ripple, right? And when there's a ripple, there's distortion. And, but that also is a rhythm as well. But there's something really important here about our attention being still and our emotional attention being still and paying attention to what's right in front of us. And there's something here with the Seven of Forces too, that is about paying attention to the detail, being very detail oriented, because ultimately we're going, the Princess of Wands is, dancing in the flames, right? This is the Venus in the fire sign. So, okay, let's break this down. There's a lot of fire, but there's also opportunity that is energetically aligning us right now. And, I feel like we're really waiting for something to happen. And we can easily get pulled into other people's interpretations of what's going on, into a sense of being deceived, right? And put our energy towards that rather than being still and being able to align with planetary and natural and of rhythm, right? The heartbeat of the planet. And this is a very Taurus thing. So let's start with the Eon, right? Number 20. This is fire. This is Jupiter in and Saturn in Aquarius, right? We do have Saturn in Aquarius, which, by the way, is in a position right now as we get into the astrology. Saturn is really is really anchoring us into a need to protect ourselves on so many levels, right? This is where it gets interesting because the sun, right, in the square to the moon today is asking for recognition from something, some certification. We want to see the white dove. We want something, anything, right? And we're not getting it. And we haven't been getting it, I would say, right? I mean, there are small instances, but in terms of this larger process of redemption or this larger process, that's going to be like a snap of the finger and it's just like it's so massive that it's like Judgment Day, right? I feel like that we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and maybe there is no great reset. If you get what I'm saying here, right? Maybe, right? Is there an awakening? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. But is there a great reset that's coming? I don't know if you've ever taken the opportunity to do any research about, and this has come up before months ago on this channel, and it's coming back around, but the idea of the reset maybe of happening already, right? 18th, 19th century, perhaps there has already been a great reset, right? So it's important that we are really being discerning really being discerning. And part of this time as the Pleiadian revival was to take our minds out of it and to start getting into our bodies, into our instinct. And remember, we talked about this yesterday with the shark, how easily our own gut reaction can be modified. I mean, certainly this is part of, mind control programs that that the three-letter agencies in particular have utilized, right? You can modulate people's own instinctual reactions to things based on certain types of programming through trauma, right? Through hypnosis, through drugs, right? Through all kinds of activities. So let's see how long it takes for the bots to show up. Yeah, I can only watch independent creators lately. Good call. I can't watch any at this point. And when I do, it's strictly as and this is not to say like you should only watch me. That's not what this is. There are a couple people that I still value, but at this point, it's just another data set for me, right? There's so few that I'm just like, okay, I think you might actually be honest and not here for the money. Think about it. Here's a really good, and I'll get back to the reading, I swear. I feel like there's a whole week of information that I need to catch up on. This is one way I think about it. Think about this. Do you think that source of information, that channel, that content creator, that person's business, right, whatever their organization is, would it be there if today, right, which it's going to happen, if our economy collapses, right, and the fiat currency that is based on nothing more than a spell that we've all been participating in, the spell breaks and we have to go back to sound money. And what does that mean? That we are focused on working with those resources that have inherent value, inherent worth, right? Here's the Pleiadian aspect, right? This is Taurus. This is the second house, right? Now, imagine if that happened, how many of these content creators, influencers, channels, organizations, would they still be doing exactly what they're doing if poof, the money was gone? And that's a pretty good indication if you want to be considering them or not. Because, yes, we all need to make a living. That's what I'm trying to do here. But the more that I do this, the more it becomes a ministry and less of a business for me. And this is the benchmark that I measure myself and what I'm doing, right? Is this still going, will I still be sitting here doing this if there wasn't, believe me, there's not a lot of money being made here right now. But would I continue to do what I'm doing if the currency system as it exists fell out and there was no money supposedly to pay me to do these things, right? This is a good benchmark, and I'm telling you, my personal opinion is 90% of those people out there that are influencers, content creators, spiritual people, right? Channels and readers and patriots and red pills, blah, 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 the whole thing. You know what I mean? I'd say if there was no money to be made, 90% of them, poof, gone, right? So it's something to consider. And and we're in a unique moment here to really feel into our discomfort around what we're looking for as some sort of indication that we've made it. And the moon in Taurus squaring the sun today is a great challenge. And it really does challenge us on what we're going to do about that new moon perspective that we initiated, right? That we become in some way, shape, or form, in some part of our lives, a fine-tuned instrument to measure the changes, anticipate what's going to happen with the collective. And this is our first challenge, right? Because if we're looking back to the collective for certification or validation of everything that we're doing, I think we might find ourselves very frustrated. And you can see this in the reading right now. So the eon reversed, quite simply, self-deception, wrong identification, right? do we have a true understanding of the circle of life that this card represents, right? The beginning and end of an age, right? As you see that there's the archway of space in the background, you see the child and the divine feminine as a silhouette in the foreground. You see, Horus and the sun disk that is on top of his head in the background, right? There is a beginning, an end, and a beginning that is seamless, right? But this is the emergence of the phoenix. To have this reversed as our causal factor here, I think a lot of people are getting frustrated, and they are maybe coming to realize they have been deceived. Now, of course, this is a much larger read here of the human collective, and many people are coming to this conclusion already. But even in our smaller niche group right here, I would argue that it's probably important to consider where we may have been led astray in our own process. And when you have this reversed, wrong deception, deception and wrong identification. Okay. And so this can make people angry, right? This can frustrate us. This can be a real problem. So when we move on to, this is causal, right? This is the cause and effect relationship here. So when we look at the aspect of right now at the heart of the matter. Now, this is how the card came out, facing this way. So I play them how they lie, right? Prince of Wands. Here is our lion pulling the chariot, right? Here is the heir of the fire. This individual is a personification of the hot storm filled with willful, impulsive energies. Delays may provoke outbursts, okay? This is important to consider. Prince of Wands doesn't have time. And again, when we're talking about Leo, we're talking about the opposite of Aquarius, we're talking about the lion, we're talking about the year of the water tiger, for instance, right? We're talking about courage, tenacity, fighting far superior forces than ourselves, the storm of the mind, moving forward, impatience and instability though, right? This is immature. This is the prince, right? It's just a mental conception of transformational creative energy. So they're seeking novelty without getting anything done a lot of times, like the prince, right? It's just acting on these willful, impulsive energies, and the delays are what fan the flames, right? And so there's restlessness and impatience, and it's really being addressed and directed, I would say, towards this closing of a cycle, beginning of a new one that's turned on its head somehow. Maybe we have wrongly identified what is the agent of our own growth and our own redemption. Perhaps we have we've deceived ourselves. I think that might be a big part of this as well, that we want to believe something, and we have done all, the mental gymnastics that people participate in order to not come to terms with that deception is considerable. And so there is, the potential to really be directing this energy towards that is very strong right now at the heart of things. And if you think about Mars trine Uranus today, this easily could turn into something where we direct this energy at this deception. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't think so, right? I mean, considering where Mars and Uranus are situated right now in terms of it's an earth trine. They're both in earth signs. There can be a direction here, but I feel like that the direction is being towards that which we have deceived ourselves about, or we've had some wrong judgment about, or just considering, why hasn't this come to pass yet, right? Where is the judgment, right? Where is the end of the eon? And I do, just take out the rest of this reading for a minute, and you can see just very clearly how we can address and focus this energy towards this in either a healthy way or an unhealthy way. It really is up to us. So when we look at our energetics in general, and where our energetic polarity really is, right? Here's our first seven, the seven of forces. Balance, right? Balance. And forces are the creative fire energy in the Akashic Tarot. There's our scales right there of Libra, in some ways, the scale of balance. This is contracts, legal stuff, right? The door is open, right? That's also a seven type of thing where there may be a fall from grace, or there may be some sort of, again, frustration, but the door is open and the sun is streaming in. There's a possibility here with this card. And this is showing us that we can find our real energetic root in this time of harmony, balance, and justice within ourselves, right? It's within us. So be patient. Pay attention to the details. This is something that continues to come up, right? Justice and reciprocity are energetic experiences. You're not going to see them in the physical until they've already established themselves as an energetic template. And so that template needs to be within us if we want to see it manifest outside of us. And we still are consistent, like as a collective, we're still waiting for the outside world to, again, certify and justify what it is we've been doing. And this is the challenge with this first quarter moon today, and is squaring the sun, which has already happened, by the way. So we can find a sense of energetic rootedness. We can find a sense of stabilization at our core by tapping into this balance, right? This balance within ourselves, that justice and reciprocity are energetic experiences. And this is where those energetic experiences really start to literally take root, is the fourth house and the nadir, or the bottom of the chart. And in this case, the bottom of this reading. So it's again, pay attention to the details. It seems very important, and we are being challenged so much in this process to sit tight, right? Emotionally, spiritually, feeling based, right? To pay attention to what's right in front of us. Maybe there's a delay in somewhere that we are going. Perhaps that has been the case, right? Maybe the delay is because we are not ready to travel out to that ship yet into open water. Maybe there is stuff we still need to take care of right here in the harbor or in our lives. We haven't tied up the loose ends emotionally yet. And again, here's the seven. These two sevens on either side is very significant of opportunity, of adjustment, of transmutational alchemy that within ourselves. But this is really striking to me that it comes out again, and I have a whole process here that this, it's not exactly easy for these types of things to happen with the way that I do my readings. So it's very significant to me that this is here. Something about, a delay. And this is where our attention is, where our focus is, where our conscious awareness is, as there's a delay. There's a journey that is not ready to be gone on. And I would say that when we get into the boat and go out to the ship, right, this is the ripples in the water, right? And we are being challenged to have the still water so that we can have an accurate reflection. And I think that this is a big part of what this full moon is going to bring up. It's so substantial. And when we look at the chart, you'll see how everything building up to that point is also really karmic and substantial. So give yourself the opportunity to find the stillness in your own mind, right? And in your own thoughts, and find the rhythm of the planet itself in order to assist with that process, rather than continuing to rely upon what is being presented to us out there as any indication of anything, right? Because it's unless it's right in front of your face, right here in front of your face, you can't, right? I don't want to say you can't trust it, but what I'm saying is that it's not the only piece of observational evidence that you can rely upon. You have to also deal with what's right in front of you, right? And getting sick is one amazing way for that to happen, right? Where you get totally into your body and what's happening with your health and your wellness, and really just not having the resources to go, to care about what's going on outside of you in the interest of healing. So I'm grateful for that. because the Princess of Wands is what to expect given all of these things. So if we can find the opportunity here energetically, and even though there is a sense in our hearts that we are just like kind of, there may be anger and, like I said, willful, impulsive energy. There may be outbursts and delays. Why aren't things happening? Where's the judgment day, right? Like, where is the reset? I can't even tell you how many times I've said out loud, the solar flash can't come soon enough, right? And that's just out of frustration of like, I'm waiting for something to happen, right? And yes, that energy can be directed towards that, but what this is showing is that we have the opportunity to find some playfulness around this and a sense of value and dancing in the flames and having the tiger be an asset to us, and as opposed to something that we're just going to like burn down with, right? And it's okay to admit that we've been deceived. It's okay to consider that maybe our sources of information have had other plans, right? Maybe it hasn't really been for our best interest. Perhaps there has been, the coin has been more important. So ultimately, though, what I do see here is an opportunity, a real opportunity to take that flaming, the flame and dance in it, rather than and be more joyful and enthusiastic and courageous, as opposed to getting upset at the delays, or utilizing that creative potential in order to just burn everything down. Now the Princess of Wands is going to do that too, right? She'll just burn it all down as well. So that's something else to consider. There's certainly still fire, but it's like a redirection of that fire. So along these lines is number one. Okay, so the Oracle of Delphi, this represents, number one in the Akashic Tarot, the first step along the major arcana of the Akashic Tarot in our journey. But what this really does represent is, yes, it's a singular experience of the Oracle perceiving the messages from Apollo. That is what the Oracle of Delphi, that's where the Oracle receives their messages from, is from Apollo. But also something to consider here is that it's about perception and interpretation, okay? These things are inseparable, and this is why you see the priest with the scroll paying attention to the oracle herself and what she has to say about it, about anything, right, is the perception. And again, this has a lot to do with where the balance is, and to pay attention to details, right? The Seven of Forces is paying attention to details, and to be able to not only perceive but interpret them correctly. Now, what's interesting about this, I think, is in terms of a guidance point, then you have the camel. And so the camel stores the water in its hump, right, for the long trek across the desert. So it has all of those emotional, spiritual, feeling-based water resources housed within it, right? This is really important for us. Trust that you have the resources to get through the challenges before you. And I would say, to go further, trust that you have the resources to not only perceive, but to interpret emotionally and intuitively and through your own feelings, what is justice, right? What is balance? Not so much given out there, but within you. And there may be there may be moments here with that we have to rely on primarily our inner resources, rather than what is being presented to us as a resource, or presented to us as fact or information or judgment, for instance, right? I think there's a lot of frustration. Everything we need is within us, right? We don't. Again, this goes back to the moon. It's a challenge, right? These quarter moons are a challenge. We grow so much from these squares that maybe take a risk here to tap back into what you consider Tap into what you consider your intuition, right? Tap into your feelings to get an idea of what's going on, and trust that you have it. It's all within you. It's all within us, right? And so the same thing applies here in terms of where we are directing our awareness and attention. Is the grouse? This is a bird that lives on the ground. They don't really fly very often. I mean, they do. It's kind of like a turkey, right? Or a pheasant, where they live primarily on the ground, but they're still birds and they still have the potential to fly. But this is about being in tune with the planetary rhythm. Whatever you do that allows for that to happen is going to also allow for you as an individual that is of this planet and is of the earth to tap into that rhythm, because that rhythm is probably more real than anything that you are being presented in some sort of informational matrix, right? And this is reminding us to get in touch with whatever process allows this to happen. Again, you can't do this where you're journeying. Maybe the journeying needs to be a stillness within ourselves. And again, with the reflection that's part of it as well, is important to realize that our channels are really open. And it's important to recognize the difference between our actual intuitive voice and emotional compulsions. And I think a lot of people don't trust themselves, and I understand why. And if you've been on this journey long enough, then you've probably already been through experiences where you thought that what your intuitive voice was telling you was your real intuitive higher self, and you discover that you've been infiltrated. And Saturn is making it very clear and is providing a lot of structure right now in order to protect ourselves at an astral level and at a social level. So trust your inner voice, but remember that inner voice and your instincts can be modified by all kinds of things now. So that's something else to consider as well. And maybe it's the process of getting into ourselves and getting quiet that we reveal where those modifications may have happened. So, but our receptivity is very high and our channels are very wide open right now. So we want to be able to tell the difference between that inner voice and the emotional compulsions. And part of that is, your higher self is not going to tear you down, but it's certainly not going to exactly feed your ego either, or anything like that. So that's something to consider as well, that sometimes we think that it's our higher voice or higher self speaking to us, but really it's just some aspect of our ego that's trying to boost, and it's under false pretenses. Again, we want to be able to, very accurately and clearly see and feel what's actually going on without any disturbances. And part of that is, staying put emotionally or in our awareness and paying attention to what's right in front of us, okay? Very interesting reading for today. So I'm going to pop over to the chat because it seems pretty lively. We are the news now. We sure are. I totally agree with that. Oh, there's the bots. Is right on time. Colloidal silver has helped too. Thank you, Paige. I've heard that as well. I never lost my smell or taste, but most of my family has, and we all got sick at the same time. Yeah, my family also, everybody got sick at the same time. And what it was, one thing I did notice for sure is that it happened, right after there was massive spraying in my area. Like every day I'd go outside and be like, oh, it's so beautiful and clear today. And then like within 20 minutes, there's just like, streaming across the sky. And then everybody got sick, right? And it's very similar. Yeah. I think that there's something to be said for that. Now, also, too, I went to a kid's birthday party at, a place where there were a lot of people and parents and kids, and that could be it as well. I mean, shedding is something that is something if we're going to talk about infection, a viral infection, and we're going to believe that and go down that route, then why is shedding any different than that? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different things potentially going on. So maybe we're the reset more than anything external. Maybe the weight is for us, then the outside gradually follows. I mean, I feel like that's just what it is. Right? As long as the energetic template is here, then we know that then it starts to go forward, right? And start to manifest. Now, we are definitely the reset, but I also think that this concept of the reset, the concept of revelation, right? This is my personal opinion and where I've gotten to, right? I'm not suggesting that this is definitive because it keeps evolving over time, at least in my experience. But I often wonder, like, how much of it, even down to the biblical level, has been created as a way to siphon our attention and energy into those scenarios. What better way to control people than to have them believe in a reset when maybe it already happened? Now, there are a couple things that I personally look to as actual observational evidence. Number one is that the magnetic poles are moving, they are drifting, and we have not. So that is something. That is something that's measurable and that we can look at. So there's something to that. And I don't know what that is, but I've had some pretty substantial dreams and shamanic journeys about this. So we'll see what that's all about. What better way to control groups of people than to have them consistently waiting for something that actually is never going to happen? Oh my gosh. So that's just my perspective at this point. And when you look at the Eon, right, and what that card represents, and to have it reversed, I mean, I think that that's a real distinct possibility. We are the reset. I mean, it's the awakening of humanity that is, and the precession of the equinoxes. There are actual measurable cycles that are coming to a close and starting new ones. That part, I think, is very real and very measurable. Like the precession of the equinoxes is a 26,000 year cycle, right? And so we know that those things are happening and have happened, and the Mayan calendar was a big part of revealing that. But maybe everything surrounding it is what has been conditioned for us. So that's something to consider as well. And yeah, the bot friend is right on time. I saw bots in the stream for something so like, it was like a stream for like twinkle. I call twinkle music, relaxation music or something to that effect. It was just a stream, and the bot showed up in the stream, and I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what does this have to do? Why are you in? I don't understand it. Maybe they follow accounts, and maybe, in the age of Kali Yuga. Yes, I have heard. This will flip your lid. Maybe, I'm not sure. Does anything surprise any of us anymore? In the age of Kali Yuga, I have heard, and I will dig up this video because I found it fascinating, that we are out of the Kali Yuga age already. So talk about a reset that may have been created artificially. What if it's not even the same history, and that we aren't even in the Kali Yuga? So, I mean, think about the fact that Britain controlled a lot of India and their history and their culture for a very long time. A lot of things can happen, can't they? It's very interesting. Anyway, this is a very spirited conversation, and I really appreciate everybody participating, and I just love the chat so much. I can't wait to go to Twitch where everything is based on that. All right, guys, let's look at some astrology and kind of ground this into a process. And I know that we're already at an hour, so I promise I won't make this too long, because I'm going to be doing the forecasts for the signs now leading up to the full moon to the next, through the second half of the cycle. So the first thing I want to show you, my friends, is, well, first I'm going to close some things out here so we don't get too confused. And if you're interested, that's what I mean. I know that it's in the Vedas, but what I'm trying to say here is that we take for granted that those things haven't been impacted or changed in any way, right? We don't know that. We only know what is being presented to us. I mean, these are just ideas. I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting that definitively that the Vedas have been manipulated. What I'm suggesting is that that it's possible. We don't know, right? We don't know, and we only know what's been presented to us. And if we're going to go as far as saying that everything we've been taught is a lie, then how does that not apply to things that we just accept maybe are true, right? I mean, I've studied in India. I've studied all these types of yoga, right? I've studied Ayurvedic medicine. I've been to India, and I have I've put a lot of stock in the Vedas and the Vedic scriptures and the practices that are part of that. But even that, we have to be willing to question. I don't believe in gurus, not anymore. The age of the guru ends with the age of Pisces. And this knowledge is transcendental and solidified by the guru. Correct. But I mean, what guru do you know at this point? I mean, the last guru that I feel like was actually relevant and relevant, like really, was Ram Dass's guru, right? And you know what his patron deity is Hanuman, the monkey god. So, I mean, if you know anything about Ram Dass and his experiences with his guru, then you know that he was quite the rascal, right? And Alan Watts talks about this a lot. About the guru being a rascal and a rapscallion, and specifically trying to turn everything on its head in order for you to remember who you are. So I think this is a really great conversation. I think these are conversations that we absolutely have to have. Purifying the inside, the emotional compulsions with the fire. Totally. I feel like that's a great way to read the reversal of the eon as well. So anyway, I want to get to the astrology. Thank you. This conversation is great. And, I've been down this road before where I've been deceived, groomed and deceived. And it's only through our own relationship to Source and to God that's really going to allow for us to come to terms with that on our own. So, and the only way that we can even do that is to have conversations with each other, right? We are each other's gurus now, because that's the age of Aquarius, right? That everybody's voice is equal in terms of the collective, whereas the age of Pisces was about the guru. I mean, that's what the Christ consciousness is meant. Christ was in that way a guru. So that's, so interesting. Anyway, it was just an idea. I'll have to find the video in particular that was talking about how we may have been deceived even in our own timeline around the yugas and which yuga we're part of. So first thing I want to point out with today, number one, here's our square to the sun and a square to the Taurus moon. We've talked about that. 19 degrees to round up to 20 degrees, and we are looking for some certification, right? Something, right? The white dove bearing the message that says, hey, everything you've done, it's actually going to pay off, right? And with the sun here, we are really... It's a struggle to find any kind of individual certification or value or of our individual voice when the sun is in Aquarius. However, here we go with the moon in Taurus. Like I said, it's, looking for this, that certification or looking for that message in the natural world itself, and the awareness of spiritual forces at work, right? And so and we want to look for a signature of divine power that's confirming our progress, but it's going to be subtle. It's going to be really subtle. It's not going to be this this obvious large white dove, right? It's not going to be like something that is a blessing, a really obvious blessing, unless we are feeling into it. So that's the first challenge here with this first quarter square. The other thing that I want to bring up today is you can see that the Black Moon Lilith in her retrograde, true Lilith, is in a square to Neptune in Pisces too. And again, this has a lot to do, I would say, that the mandate, right? The mandate coming down from the mountain, the taking the peak experience of some sort of spiritual revelation and applying it to everyday life, right? It's like Moses bringing the tablets down, and that's actually the Sabian symbol, right? The bringing the law down from the mountain into some sort of like form, right? And something very substantial that you can point to that's just like, this says what to do, right? But it came from a spiritual experience or a revelation in some way. So whereas Neptune, turns the fog machine up to 11, right? The propaganda, the fog of war, the confusion, the dreaminess, the imagination, the lack of boundaries here, the power of this realm, of the astral realm. The square here to Lilith, this mutable square, I mean, she is... Soon the moon will be coming into Gemini as of tomorrow, tonight into tomorrow. So there will be a little bit more of this Gemini activity. But in the meantime, it's this deep primal part of ourselves that is looking for some sort of organic wholeness when it comes to the dialectic, right? Like how can we work together? How can they dance together into some sort of, as some sort of organic, it's not unity, it's a dance. It's something that, excuse me, I'm so sorry. But it has form. It has significant form. There is a distinct thesis and antithesis. And just because it's, but it keeps that aspect of our consciousness, alive in some ways. Whereas Neptune and Pisces, of course, is just like everything. It just dissolves everything it touches. So this first square today too is like we're tapping into this primal deep urge in some ways to keep our mind to keep ourselves in this mental realm. And Neptune is just like, nope. It's just dissolved down into the base, the base field of consciousness where there are no boundaries. There is no side of the pool, right? There is nothing but the field of consciousness. There's nothing but the Akash, right? There's nothing but this vibratory ocean of consciousness. And the thing about Lilith is she'll be heard no matter what. And if we don't realize how she expresses herself, or at least give her the space within us to do this, then she will find her way to be heard anyway. And maybe we don't want to lose ourselves entirely into the flow, but we also don't want to get caught up in, trying to find a dichotomy that doesn't maybe exist, right? In order to keep our minds active. You can see here how the Seven of Roses is really coming forward with this particular transit of what we're going to do with ourselves, what we're going to do with our mind. And when the moon moves into Gemini tomorrow, I think that we'll get a better handle on this. And there is something to be said for Lilith because she represents, the original divine feminine blueprint, right? And that part of ourselves. Remember, the mitochondrial DNA comes from the mother, right? There's something extremely important about what Lilith represents in our psyche, obviously, and in our emotional state, but also too in our very nature of beings, right? The mitochondrial DNA only comes from the mother. There is something very important about the female and the sacred feminine aspect that will be heard no matter what. And so this also too keeps us from just like dissolving ourselves entirely into what's just being presented to us as well. So that's also part of today's. Now, what I want to show you ultimately as we move through the week is And we talked about Mars and Uranus in that trine, how that's a really awesome opportunity right now to have a strong, stable foundation in the actual world of assets and material resources. And then Mars has a direction. Mars has a goal. Mars is putting our own individual creative potential into discovering the underlying process of how it all works, right? And we wouldn't even want to do that if there wasn't an upset in the actual material realm in and of itself, right? If Taurus is currency, for instance, Capricorn is the economy. And to understand, and I've talked about this before, Mars is putting energy into building something, reaching a goal, working together, coming to some sort of conclusion here about the economy, for instance, right? And it's the shakeup, the shifting of the actual material realm of resources and assets and currency that is giving us the impetus to even do this in the first place, and vice versa. So this is a really useful transit today, or we can find ourselves acting out when we don't understand what's going on, and we're having a hard time really settling into a glitch in the matrix, right? Anyway. So the other thing I want to point out that you can see really strongly here is that, Pluto is now coming into the position of the Pluto return in the United States, and is coming into also a direct connection to the nodal axis of the moon. And this is going to be, if we move forward, which we're going to do, we're going to see that this is going to become, this is two sides of what will eventually be a mystic rectangle with the moon in Cancer opposite Pluto, which is the same position that the full moon was in last month. And there was exactly this. There was a mystic rectangle. This time, though, it's going to be like exact. And so there is tension along these two oppositions of Pluto and the moon, right? There is incredible amount of feeling and intense raw emotion that comes with a moon opposite Pluto. There's such a potential to really manipulate people with this transit. But it also, moon in Cancer is very powerful. So let's go forward a little bit and start kind of looking at things real quick. So you can see it's getting stronger. Mercury is now will come back and meet Pluto during this week as well. So this is the third of the three Mercury-Pluto conjunctions, and Mercury is now direct and will stay direct for a while now. So there's been a lot of review, mental review, observational review, data review that is now going to allow for a deep analysis, finally, of what is going through transformation and metamorphosis. And it's at a sociopolitical level. It's all of the institutions that make up our society and our security. So we have so many ways to be, there's so many ways to be supported right now through this process, astrologically, that I'm really just digging on. So this is still today. So we'll just keep going forward 12 hours at a time, because you can see that this is getting stronger. Venus and Mars are getting closer and closer to each other. And you see now that Lilith and Saturn are going to come into a trine right before the full moon, actually. So things kind of ease up here by tomorrow in terms of the intensity of things. You're going to see that as we keep going forward. This angle here is still really strong because it's Pluto and the nodes, so they don't move very quickly. So you also see that the moon meets Black Moon Lilith here on the 10th as well. So we're getting into the middle of the week, into towards the weekend. And it's going to be a big deal this weekend, right? We have the Super Bowl is on Sunday. We have Valentine's Day is on the 14th, and then we're going to have this full moon that's happening on the 16th that is incredible. So let's see here. As we keep going through just little bits at a time here, The moon is moving and now in Cancer. So one of the things we're going to notice too is that the moon is going to be in conjunction with Sirius as it's in opposition to both Venus and Mars, who are now in positions of Vega, right? So this is a pretty big starseed activation, this opposition here, because these two are going to be together in the same whole degree as Vega. So these are Lyran starseed activations with Venus and Mars. So this is very palpable, right? This is very palpable. These are accessible energies because Mars and Venus are personal planets. They relate to the seed and the soil, right? The subject and the object, the outward and the inward, right? The expression of Mars and the contraction or magnetism of Venus. They're at Vega, right? Vega is the primary star in the Lyran constellation. It is the primary. If you're into the Voyager material at all, then you know that the Vega is the 10th gate of the 12 gate Stargate system, right? It is the original humanoid species, not only on this planet, but in this whole galaxy, is the Lyrans. So, but here's the moon, right? The moon opposite it in Sirius, right? And so there's, in terms of where we gather our emotional stability and what our responsibility is to each other, to society, and how to act in accordance to what's best for everybody, and making sure that future generations are taken care of, as opposed to just being focused on what's happening right in this moment, and or what is what we can be responsible for right in who is closest to us. This is going to be brought out really strongly with this opposition. And we'll get into it more as we get closer. So now you can see that the aspect lines are starting to get stronger again. So here's Lilith and Saturn. Now this, I'm telling you guys, this trine is just gnarly. Number one, Saturn will move into the 17 to 18 degree position of Aquarius. This is a public unmasking, right? There's no getting around this, right? There is no getting around Saturn. And in a trine to Lilith, our survival in this moment is finding some sort of mental insulation so that we don't get caught up in all the aftermath of what this is going to represent, right? This is the 13th of February. This is the Super Bowl. Right? This is the day of the Super Bowl where this is happening. So, in case you don't know, is one of the primary trafficking events every year is the Super Bowl, because of the amount of travel in and out of a city. Planes and people from all over the world travel in and out of the city of the Super Bowl. They book hotels, right? There is so much movement. It's one of the largest. So I have a feeling, I don't know. I just get the sense that this is going to be brought up somehow. And our own, and there may be people out of self-preservation, trying to hide themselves, but there's no hiding. There's no hiding from Saturn. And Jupiter is now starting to come into its, sextile with Uranus, which is, a pretty substantial initiation moment with Jupiter in Pisces. So as we move through, getting closer and closer to this full moon, right? So here's you can see the mystic rectangle starting to come into focus here, and you are well, here we go. And now you start to see the sun is now in a T-square with the nodes, and this is going to be another angle that's completed with the full moon. Because it's going to be the full moon in Leo that creates the angle of the grand square. So let's see here. All of these things we've talked about. So here is still the 15th, right? So we've moved past Valentine's Day. We've moved into the next week. And here is the beginning of our full moon time, right? So let's go ahead like an hour so it's exact. And we've talked about this endlessly. So I don't want to go back into the full moon so much right now, just to show you this grand square. Remember what I just talked about with squares, right? They're conflicts, they're challenges. A grand square, nobody's getting around this. And this is incredibly karmic. This is along the nodes in conjunction with the Pleiades. This is the Atlantean degree where the moon in Leo is, opposite our sun in Aquarius. This is an overlap of that timeline onto right now, where we get to either grow and really kind of have a quantum leap forward, or we just let the frustration consume us. It's definitely a possibility with this full moon. And then also too, like I said, we missed the mystic rectangle. So let me go back a day, because I really want to show you this too. And then we'll move on, because I think that's plenty of we've had plenty of time here. So I believe, we're going to see it on Valentine's Day, this mystic rectangle with Pluto and Pluto and the moon in Cancer, in her home sign of Cancer. Here we go. One more shot here, guys. There it is. You can see the opposition here. Mercury has already moved past and is going to go into Aquarius around this time. So this is a very, very strong time leading up to the full moon. So in the meantime, we are addressing, the transit of the moon through Taurus, through Gemini, and through her home sign of Cancer. And there's a mystic rectangle. Again, there are two oppositions here, but everything outside of it is an opportunity to invest and to activate something positive and harmonious. And remember, this is now at the degree of the natal Pluto of the United States, opposite of the Cancer full moon. So again, we're going to have an opportunity to, there's all these weird overlaps right now. We're going to have an opportunity to go back to last month's full moon in Cancer and revisit it without the sun's illumination. I mean, the sun will be illuminating it more than it was at the full moon, but it's now just with Pluto involved in its opposition that we can find some way of harnessing our soul's karmic journey in conjunction with the Pleiades. And remember, this is the same degree that the full moon lunar eclipse was in November. So, we've talked about this before, how there will be these ripple effects, how there will be this return, how there will be superimposed, it's like folding time back on and in on itself in order to get a different perspective, right? Or to see something different. And, if you remember maybe this, some of you are going to remember this back in school, like in grade school or even high school, sometimes even college, depending on how, when you went, the transparencies, right? You put the thing up and it shows on the board, and then you take the plastic and you put it over, and then you can superimpose like a new piece of information. That's what this feels like in order to get a bigger sense of the picture here. But there are things that needed to begin in order to get here and be able to really accurately perceive what's happening. And you can't do that without opportunities to be wrong. Be wrong. And right now this first quarter square is a big part of challenging us to sink into the natural rhythm in order to get our information and be able to fine tune ourselves as an instrument that can measure what is going to happen, as opposed to waiting for some certification outside of us to tell us what's going on. So I know that this was a long stream and I appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, we're about an hour and a half. So I'm going to leave it there. Right? Do you guys have any questions? Does anybody that's still in the chat have any questions? Or if you're watching this on the replay, please don't hesitate to ask questions, drop a comment, asking a question. And I'm very responsive. So I can answer questions. Other people can answer questions in the comment section too. If you, want to know something or have, want to start a conversation, of course, Telegram, we have a great chat going on over there as well. So, my friends, I am going to leave it there for today. That is our broadcast for today. So, if you are interested in a reading or energy work to support your process, first of all, I'm going to just flash this really quick. And for those of you who have been part of this every day, I appreciate your patience and humoring this so much, but I really want to let people know that this is an option in case this is the first time that you're here or you're not on Telegram or on my email list, that I'm still offering these really discounted starseed readings up until the full moon. These are recorded readings. They look at your starseed markings in your chart, and we, expand and weave together a narrative about your own soul's journey and how it relates to your starseed origins. And then Reiki sessions, 30 minutes of distance work, $22 as an add-on to any service. And not only do you receive, and I receive the Reiki as I channel it, but I get a lot of intuitive information when I do that as well. So that's something to consider. Everything you need is in the description box below, my friends. You can get on my mailing list through my website. You can join us on Telegram. You can reach out directly through email. That's all in the description box below. Or you can stick around to the end of this video to get more information. And if you really do value the availability of this content in the platforms that it's available, please consider subscribing at Subscribestar. That allows me to continue building out these platforms and make this work more of a ministry than necessarily a business. And I think this is, everybody needs to make a living, and I totally understand that, and so do I, which is why I am asking for some financial reinforcement to keep doing this. But it would just mean a lot to have your support as I continue along this process. So, my friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I'm taking Wednesdays off from broadcasting, so I will be on Telegram and available by email tomorrow, of course. But we'll be back together on Thursday for a daily medicine transmission. So, in the meantime, guys, have a great day. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. Jacques, you rock, and I appreciate your content and your willingness to engage in a really spirited and honest discussion without taking anything personally. I think this is probably our best, what we need right now, just in general. So take care of yourselves, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I love you. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you on Thursday. Peace.